Back, my friends, to the darkest corner. Today's tales are about mythical creatures. Enjoy.
The moon's dead. The last sliver of the sun bled out below the horizon, painting the clouds in bruised shades of purple and orange. From the porch of his secluded cabin, Elias watched the twilight deepen, a knot of familiar dread tightening in his gut. He had done everything right, just as he had for the past 7 years. The cabin was miles from any town, nestled deep in a forest that seemed to swallow sound. The pantry was stocked, the doors and windows were reinforced, and a silver chain, a desperate, superstitious whim, lay cold on the small wooden table inside. He drew in a shaky breath, the crisp pine air doing little to calm the tremor in his hands. It was the waiting that was the worst. The sky, still holding a faint luminescence, was a canvas of cruel beauty, a final, peaceful mockery before the madness. Soon, the moon would claim it. It began not with a pain, but with a hum, a low thrumming under his skin, a vibration that resonated with the very marrow of his bones. His senses, already sharp from a life spent in the wild, began to betray him. The scent of damp earth and distant rain became a symphony of decay, and life so potent it was nauseating. The gentle hoot of an owl a mile away sounded as if it were perched on his shoulder, its call a drill boring into his skull. He stumbled inside, bolting the heavy door. His reflection in the dark window was a stranger's, gaunt, eyes wide with a feral terror. The hum intensified, a prelude to the agony. A fire ignited in his joints, a searing heat that spread through his limbs. He collapsed onto the floorboards, his cry a choked, guttural sound, already losing its human shape. This was the moon's debt, and it had come to collect. His skeleton felt like it was trying to tear its way out of his skin. Bones cracked and elongated with sickening wet pops. His spine arched, contorting into an unnatural curve, muscles ripping and reknitting themselves into a new, more powerful form. He squeezed his eyes shut, but the images were seared on the inside of his eyelids, his fingers thickening, nails hardening and darkening into vicious claws, his jawline shattering and stretching forward into a muzzle, his teeth lengthening into daggers. The human part of him, the part that was Elias, screamed and clawed for purchase in a mind that was being flooded with a red tide of instinct. It was a losing battle. Thoughts fragmented, language dissolved, and the complex tapestry of a man's life unraveled into a single, primal thread. Hunt. When he opened his eyes again, the world was a mosaic of scents and subtle movements, painted in the stark monochrome of moonlight. The cabin was a cage. The scent of his own human fear lingered, a foul and irritating smell. With a snarl that was pure predator, the wolf threw itself against the door. The wood groaned, splintered, and then burst outward. Freedom was a blast of cold night air. The forest was not a place of quiet beauty anymore. It was a territory, a hunting ground teeming with the frantic heartbeats of prey. The wolf lowered its head, tasting the air. A scent, faint but alluring, drifted on the breeze. A deer, careless and close. The hunt was everything. The explosive power in its haunches, the ground devouring stride, the world blurring into streaks of silver and shadow. There was no thought, only the burning need to run, to catch, to kill. The thrill of the chase was a fire that burned away the last vestiges of the man, leaving only the beast, perfect and terrible in its purpose. Hours later, as the first hint of dawn threatened the eastern sky, a different kind of ache began to settle deep within the wolf. A weariness that was more than physical. It was a pull, a faint echo of a life forgotten. It turned its blood-matted muzzle from the half-eaten carcass and trotted, with a strange reluctance, back toward the broken cabin. The transformation back was a slow, agonizing collapse. The brutal strength receded, leaving behind a quivering, bone-deep exhaustion. Lying on the dew-soaked ground, naked and shivering, Elias blinked at the soft gray light. His mind was a wreck of shattered images, the snap of a branch, the warmth of blood, the terrified eyes of the deer. They weren't memories, not really. They were scars left on his soul, the brutal graffiti of the beast. He pushed himself to his feet, every muscle screaming in protest, and staggered back into the ruins of his cage to wait for the next full moon. The first time Alara saw him, truly saw him, was in the shimmering haze between waking and sleep. He wasn't a nightmare, not in the traditional sense. He was a whisper of shadow and moonlight, carved from stolen sighs and forgotten wishes. He was beautiful in a way that made her breath catch, a dangerous precipice of dark eyes and a smile that promised both ecstasy and oblivion. Her dreams had always been vivid, a swirling kaleidoscope of colors and concepts that fueled her art. But lately, they had taken on a new, unsettling tangibility. He was the architect of this shift, a recurring presence who would materialize in her most private subconscious spaces. At first, it was subtle. A hand brushing hers in a crowded dream market, a shared glance across a fantastical ballroom, the phantom scent of night-blooming jasmine that lingered even after she awoke. She knew what he was, or at least what folklore whispered he was. An incubus. A creature that fed on desire, on life force, through the intimate communion of sleep. The rational part of her mind, the one that paid rent and bought groceries, screamed for her to banish him, to board up the windows of her subconscious. But another part, a secret, yearning part, found itself inexplicably drawn to the danger. One night, he spoke. His voice was a low hum, a melody woven from silk and shadows, echoing in the cavern of her dream. "You dream of more, Alara," he murmured, his fingers tracing the curve of her jaw, a touch that was impossibly real. "More than this mundane world offers." She shivered, a delicious dread pooling in her stomach. "Who are you?" "I am Nyx," he purred, his name a soft caress against her ear. "And I am what you seek." The encounters grew bolder, the lines between sleep and waking blurring into a seamless, intoxicating current. He would appear when she was half dozing, sketching in the quiet hours of the night. He wouldn't touch her then, not physically, but his presence was a palpable weight, a heat that made her skin tingle. His eyes, dark as polished obsidian, would watch her, a knowing glint within their depths. "Why me?" she whispered one restless night, her pen hovering over a half-finished sketch of his face. He materialized beside her, leaning against the cold stone of her studio wall, a ripple of darkness in the moonlit room. "Because your dreams are a tapestry of such vibrant, untapped longing, Alara. A feast." His voice was a seductive murmur, a promise of something profound and terrifying. "And you, little artist, are closer to us than you know." He offered her visions, not just dreams. He showed her worlds of impossible beauty and haunting despair, places where her art came alive in breathtaking ways. He showed her the depths of her own ambition, her deepest fears, her most forbidden desires. And with each shared experience, each brush of his ethereal presence, she felt a profound drain, a subtle yet persistent weariness that clung to her even as a new, thrilling vitality pulsed beneath her skin. Her friends noticed. "You look tired, Alara," they'd say, concern etched on their faces. But also different, more vibrant, somehow. She would just smile, a secret, knowing smile that chilled her even as it excited her. She was different. She was living on the edge of two worlds, and one of them was calling to her with an irresistible, dangerous song. One morning, she woke with the scent of jasmine heavy in her room, and on her pillow, a single, impossibly dark feather. It wasn't a dream. It was real. And she knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified her, that her dance with Nyx was just beginning, and she had no idea where it would lead, or what parts of herself she would lose in the process.